It started with the kind of silence that makes you think even the walls are listening. "Are you lost, sweetheart? This is not your kind of place." The words didn't just drop, they sliced through the air, clean and cold. Amara froze halfway to the hostess stand, the subtle clack of her heels now sounding far too loud in the upscale hush of La Fontaine. She had heard worse in her 32 years, but something about the smug smile curled on the man's lips as though he was doing her a favor by humiliating her made her stomach turn. He wasn't just a man. He was Robert Kessler, owner, chef, and self-proclaimed culinary visionary, a man whose face grinned from every local magazine's top dining list for the last decade. Behind him, a young hostess in a pale beige dress shifted uncomfortably, her fingers fidgeting with the reservation book. Amara inhaled slowly. She had come here to celebrate something good. A small promotion at her nonprofit job. A little personal victory. But the instant she saw Kessler's narrowed eyes, it was clear. To him, she wasn't a customer. She was an intrusion. "You must be joking," she said softly, keeping her tone even. "I'm not," Kessler replied, voice carrying easily over the gentle clinking of silverware in the dining room. Several diners had already turned to watch. "Our clientele expects a certain standard." His gaze swept over her in one swift motion from her dress to her skin and landed back on her face like a verdict. The hostess murmured, "Sir," but Kessler cut her off with a sharp glance. Amara's heart pounded, but not from shame. No shame had been burned out of her long ago, replaced by something far more dangerous to men like him: composure. She glanced over his shoulder, noting the soft jazz floating from the speakers, the way white linen tablecloths caught the light. The pale faces turned toward her, their curiosity barely masked by polite pretense. She could have turned around. She could have walked away. But sometimes, life throws you a stage and hands you an audience. "I'll take the table by the window," she said, not breaking eye contact. Something in Kessler's jaw twitched. "You will take the door, Ms. Walker. Amara Walker." She stepped closer, voice still calm. "And you're going to want to remember my name." The words hung in the air like a slow-falling match toward dry leaves. It should have ended there, him throwing her out, her walking away, but fate doesn't always respect a neat ending. Instead, it tangled them together in ways neither expected. By the time the night was over, Robert Kessler's name would be trending online not for his award-winning lobster bisque, but for a 10-second video captured on a stranger's phone. And by the end of the week, the same man who had told her to take the door would be kneeling before her, in front of a crowd, with tears in his eyes. But in that moment, none of that had happened yet. All Amara knew was that she wasn't leaving quietly. The tension broke when a young waitress approached, her voice tentative. "Ma'am, if you'll follow me, I'll seat you." Kessler's head snapped toward her. "Maria, I told you." "With respect, sir," Maria said, her voice barely shaking, "we don't turn customers away unless they violate policy." And she hasn't. Amara caught the girl's eye, a silent thank you passing between them. Kessler's lips pressed into a thin line. "One drink," he said finally. "Then she leaves." "Fine," Amara replied, smiling faintly. It wasn't fine. It was war disguised as dinner. Maria led her to a small two-top by the window. The glass reflected the glitter of city lights outside, a sharp contrast to the stares prickling her back. She could feel them, whispers too faint to hear, but sharp enough to cut. When Maria handed her the menu, she leaned closer. "I'm sorry. He's like that." Amara tilted her head. "Like what?" Maria hesitated, then said, "To people he thinks don't belong here." A beat passed. Amara opened the menu without looking down. "Then maybe it's time someone reminded him we all belong wherever we can pay the bill." Maria's lips twitched, almost a smile, before she hurried off. Kessler hovered by the bar, his eyes flicking toward her table every few seconds. Amara could feel the heat of his glare as she ordered a glass of red and the most expensive entree on the menu. If he wanted her gone, he'd have to watch her enjoy every bite. The first sip of wine was smooth, rich almost enough to drown the metallic tang of his contempt. Almost. Halfway through her meal, she noticed a man at the next table raise his phone slightly. At first, she thought he was texting, but then the lens shifted toward her and Kessler in the background. She didn't stop him. Let the record show. She would soon be glad she hadn't. By the time dessert arrived, the air had changed. Not softened, not really, more like the moment before a storm breaks. when the world holds its breath. Kessler approached, a forced smile plastered across his face. Enjoying your meal? Very much, Amara said, dabbing her lips with the napkin. Though I can't say the service at the door was very welcoming. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes sharpened. Some places simply aren't for everyone. Her laugh was soft, but dangerous. I'll make sure to tell my 2 million followers that. That was the first crack in his mask. The rest would come soon enough. Kessler's smile faltered for just a second, but in that sliver of a moment, Amara saw something, not fear exactly, but recognition. He had just realized she wasn't an easy target. 2 million followers? He repeated, his tone skeptical. She leaned back in her chair, swirling the last of her wine lazily. Social media is funny like that. You never know who you're talking to until you've already said the wrong thing. His brow furrowed, but he straightened, affecting a confident air. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Ms. Walker. He walked away, but his stride wasn't quite as steady as before. Maria reappeared, setting down a small plate of chocolate soufflé. On the house, she whispered. Amara smiled warmly. Thank you. I don't want to get in trouble, Maria said softly, glancing toward the kitchen. But what he did, that wasn't right. It never is. You don't have to apologize for him, Amara said, breaking the soufflé with her fork. Some people dig their own graves. He just handed me the shovel. By the time she left the restaurant, the man with the phone had approached her. Hey, I hope you don't mind, he said, offering a small grin. But I caught the whole thing when you walked in. Him telling you to leave, you keeping your cool? It's powerful stuff. Powerful? She asked with a wry smile. It's just Tuesday. He chuckled. Seriously, this needs to be seen. What's your Instagram? I'll tag you when I post it. She hesitated for only a heartbeat. At Amara.walks. Nice handle, he said, tapping it into his phone. I think you're about to walk into a storm. He wasn't wrong. The video hit Twitter first. Someone reposted it to TikTok. By the next morning, Amara's phone was a machine gun of notifications, mentions, messages, interview requests. The clip had been viewed over 500,000 times in 12 hours. The comments were a mix of outrage and vindication. How is this still happening in 2025? Queen, the way you handled him, pure class. Name and shame. Robert Kessler, La Fontaine, downtown. Never eating there again. By noon, a local news station was calling her for a statement. Amara sat at her kitchen counter, sipping coffee, scrolling through the chaos. She hadn't planned to become the face of a viral outrage cycle, but the moment was here, and it had teeth. Maria had DM'd her too. It's bad here today. Reporters are outside. He's furious, but everyone's talking about it. Meanwhile, Robert Kessler was having the worst day of his career. The lunch service was half empty, and the few customers who did come in seemed more interested in gawking than eating. Outside, a small group of protesters had gathered, holding hand-painted signs. Racism is on the menu, and shut down La Fontaine. Inside his office, Robert slammed his laptop shut. This is insane. It's one stupid misunderstanding. His PR manager, a wiry man in glasses named David, rubbed his temples. It's not a misunderstanding when it's on video, Robert. People saw you tell a black woman she didn't belong here. They heard you. I didn't say. David cut him off. You did. And now you have two options. Get ahead of it, or get buried by it. Robert's jaw clenched. I'm not apologizing to her. David sighed. Then you might as well start packing up the business now. That evening, Amara appeared on a local talk show, seated in a plush armchair opposite the host. So, Amara, the host began, walk us through what happened when you arrived at La Fontaine. Amara told the story plainly, no embellishments, no dramatics, just the cold facts of what had been said and how it made her feel. It's not just about me, she said, leaning forward. It's about the message it sends when a business owner thinks they can decide who belongs based on skin color. That's not just bad service, it's systemic prejudice, and it thrives on silence. The audience erupted in applause. The clip went viral again. By Friday, Kessler's phone was ringing nonstop, not with reservations, with cancellations. Sponsors for his upcoming cookbook tour were pulling out. A local food festival uninvited him. The pressure was mounting, and his stubborn pride was crumbling under the weight of economic reality. That's when David delivered the final blow. They want you to apologize on camera, he said, standing in Robert's office doorway. And not just some PR scripted nonsense. They want you to meet her. Publicly. On Saturday. Robert stared at him. You're out of your mind. No, David said. I'm trying to save what's left of yours. Saturday afternoon was gray and heavy, clouds pressing low over the city. A crowd had gathered in front of La Fontaine, reporters, protesters, curious onlookers. Amara arrived in a navy coat, her curls loose, her posture straight. Maria spotted her first, slipping through the crowd to greet her with a quick hug. He's inside, Maria whispered. He's different today? Nervous. Amara's gaze didn't waver. Good. When she stepped through the door, cameras followed. Robert Kessler was waiting, standing near the hostess stand where their confrontation had begun. But this time, he wasn't in his sharp suit. He wore a plain shirt, no tie, his shoulders tight with tension. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then, slowly, Robert sank to his knees. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I was wrong, he said, voice low but steady. I judged you before I knew you. I disrespected you because of your skin color, and that was inexcusable. I am sorry, Ms. Walker. The flashes from cameras lit the room like lightning. Amara didn't move for several seconds. Her voice, when it came, was even. Do you know what the hardest part was, Mr. Kessler? It wasn't your words. It was knowing you've probably said them to others who didn't have a camera on them, who just walked away. Robert swallowed hard. I know. I can't change what I did, but I want to change who I am. She studied him, measuring the weight of the moment. Then don't just apologize to me. Apologize to every person you've made feel small in this place. Change your hiring practices. Open your doors to everyone, not just those you think belong. His voice cracked. I will. The crowd was silent, waiting. Amara nodded once. Then stand up. You've got work to do. Outside, as the media swarmed, Amara slipped away quietly. Maria caught up to her, breathless. That was wow. Amara smiled faintly. It's a start. The rest is up to him. And as she walked down the street, the noise of the crowd fading behind her, she knew this wouldn't be the last time she stood her ground. But for now, one battle was won. One man had fallen to his knees, and the world had watched. The winter air was sharp, biting at Amara's cheeks as she moved away from the press. She could still hear the muffled hum of reporters shouting Kessler's name, cameras clicking like 1,000 tiny hammers. Maria had gone back inside, but not before squeezing Amara's hand, a quiet promise that the seed planted today would grow in that place. Amara didn't head straight home. She needed to walk, needed the rhythm of her boots on the sidewalk to shake off the heaviness in her chest. Every block took her further from the chaos, but the image of Kessler on his knees followed her like a shadow. It wasn't victory she felt. Not really. Victory was clean, triumphant. This was messy. She had forced him to confront what he'd done, but whether he truly understood it, that would take more than a single public humiliation. By Monday, the world had already spun the event into a dozen different narratives. Some hailed her as a hero. Others accused her of ruining a man's life over one bad day. A talk radio host sneered about cancel culture, while an op-ed in the city's largest newspaper praised her for holding the powerful accountable. And then there were the messages, hundreds of them, from strangers. Thank you. My grandmother was told to leave a diner in 1962. She never went back. You stood up for her too. From haters. You're just chasing clout. Enjoy your 15 minutes. And from people who had worked at La Fontaine. He's been like this for years. Staff warned him. He never listened. One email stood out. It was from a man named Elliot, a former sous chef at La Fontaine. If you're serious about making change, I have stories. Not just about you. About how he treated immigrants, women, anyone he thought was beneath him. I can prove it. They met the next afternoon at a small cafe tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. Elliot was in his 40s, his hands marked with the tiny burns of years in a kitchen. He's charming when he wants to be, Elliot began, wrapping his hands around a mug of coffee. That's how he keeps people quiet. But if you're not white, or rich, or useful to him, he'll remind you every day that you're disposable. He spoke of wage theft, racial slurs muttered just out of earshot of customers, and a firing that happened the day a dishwasher asked for sick leave. I stayed too long, Elliot admitted. Thought I could ignore it. But when I saw your video, I knew I should have spoken up sooner. Amara listened, her pen moving quickly over a notebook. This wasn't just about one ugly interaction at the door, it was a pattern. A culture. The more she dug, the deeper it went. Former employees sent her screenshots of text messages from Kessler, curt, dismissive, sometimes openly mocking. A Haitian prep cook described being told to stand in the back when a certain wealthy regular came in. A pattern emerged, one too consistent to be denied. Amara wasn't a journalist, but she had friends who were. She compiled everything into a neatly organized folder and passed it to a reporter she trusted. The story broke on Wednesday. Inside LaFontaine, a culture of discrimination and fear. It was devastating, not just to Kessler's image, but to his very foundation. The article painted a picture of a man who had built an empire on exclusivity, policed by prejudice. By Thursday, the restaurant was closed temporarily, according to a sign taped to the door. That same evening, Amara's phone buzzed. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Walker," a voice said when she answered. "This is Robert Kessler." There was a long pause, as if he had to push the next words out. "I know you have no reason to speak with me, but I need to tell you I read the article. And I'm ashamed, not just for what I did to you, but for what I've done to so many." Amara let the silence stretch. "And I want to make things right. Not just a statement, real action. But I can't do it alone." "You want my help?" she said flatly. "Yes," he admitted. "You understand what needs to change better than I do. And I owe you." Amara closed her eyes, weighing it. "Meet me tomorrow," she said. "And don't come with excuses. Come with a plan." The next day, they met at a neutral spot, a community center downtown. No cameras, no audience. Kessler looked different, not just in his plain clothes, but in his posture, smaller, somehow, as if the weight of the last week had stripped away layers of arrogance. "I've been talking to my staff," he began. "To former employees. Listening, really listening, for the first time." He laid out a plan. Diversity training for all management, a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, scholarships for culinary students from marginalized backgrounds, and a public forum where past employees could speak openly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I'm asking for accountability." Amara studied him carefully. "This is a start, but it's only as real as your commitment when no one's watching." He nodded. "Then I'll make sure people are always watching." Over the next month, LaFontaine underwent a transformation. The restaurant reopened with a new team, many of them former employees Kessler had once pushed out. The menu featured dishes inspired by cuisines he'd previously dismissed, credited by name to the chefs who created them. On opening night, Amara was there. Not as a customer, not as a token face of progress, but as a speaker at a small gathering before dinner service began. "Change doesn't happen because someone got caught on camera," she told the room. "It happens because we keep the light on long after the spotlight moves away." Kessler stood beside her, not interrupting, not centering himself, just listening. Outside, the air smelled of rain and possibility. Maria found her before she left. "It's different now," she said, her voice bright. "I don't feel like I have to hide anymore." Amara smiled. "Good. That means it's working." As she walked away, she knew there would be more battles ahead, in restaurants, in boardrooms, in every place someone still decided who belonged. But tonight, one place was better than it had been, and that was worth something. Spring crept into the city quietly, softening the air and loosening the winter gray. By then, the firestorm around LaFontaine had calmed. The restaurant wasn't just surviving, it was busier than ever. Word of the transformation spread, drawing in a far more diverse crowd than the pristine old days when Kessler had guarded the door like a bouncer. Amara had no intention of becoming a restaurant reformer full-time, but the story had taken on a life of its own. Other employees from other businesses began contacting her with similar stories. Hotels turning away indigenous guests, boutiques following Black teenagers around the store, a club that refused entry to patrons with urban clothing. She could have ignored them, could have let LaFontaine be the singular victory and walked away. But she couldn't. That's how the Belong Project was born. It started as a small network, volunteers documenting discriminatory practices at local businesses and pushing for accountability. Amara poured her spare hours into organizing forums, connecting lawyers with victims, and helping journalists get the proof they needed to publish their stories. Within 3 months, the project had forced 3 other high-profile establishments to apologize and change their policies. Some nights, exhaustion clung to her like a heavy coat. There were too many stories, too much pain. And yet, There were victories too, letters from strangers who could finally walk into a store without fear, business owners who sought her out to ask how they could do better before ending up on the wrong side of her movement. One afternoon, she sat in her small office at the nonprofit where she still worked part-time. A padded envelope had arrived with no return address. Inside was an old black-and-white photograph, a young black woman in a 1960s diner, sitting alone at the counter. Her chin was lifted, her eyes calm but unyielding. On the back, in faded blue ink, was written, "Your grandmother. Greensboro, 1963. Amara stared at it for a long time, her chest tightening. She had never seen this photo before, but she knew the story. Her grandmother, Lena Walker, had been part of the sit-ins during the civil rights movement. She had never spoken much about it, maybe because it was painful, maybe because she thought the world had moved past it. But here it was, proof that the fight was older than Amara, older than her parents, older than the city itself. She set the photo on her desk, leaning back. She wasn't just continuing her own story, she was picking up threads that had been woven decades before. The next time she saw Robert Kessler, it wasn't in a restaurant or in front of cameras. It was at a community event for the Belong Project, a fundraiser to provide legal aid to victims of discrimination. He'd bought a ticket quietly, no press, no announcement. When he approached her, she was in the middle of speaking to a group of students. She excused herself and stepped aside with him. "I didn't want to intrude," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "I just wanted to tell you I've been keeping the promises. Not because anyone's watching, but because I am." Amara studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good. That's how it lasts." He hesitated, then added, "I also wanted to thank you. Not for forgiving me, I don't expect that, but for not giving up on the idea that I could be better." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a flyer for the Belong Project. "Then help me make others better too. Use what you've learned. Speak up when you see it happening. And remember, the moment you stop, the work stops with you." He took the flyer and folded it carefully into his jacket pocket. "I will." By the end of the year, the Belong Project had chapters in 3 other cities. Amara's story had been featured in a national magazine, not as a tale of one woman taking down one man, but as an example of how accountability and transformation could coexist. The night the article came out, she sat on her couch with a cup of tea, scrolling through messages. Some were from people she'd never meet. Others were from those who had been directly touched by her work. One was from Maria. "We hired a Haitian chef this week. He's amazing. The team loves him. Robert asked him to put one of his grandmother's recipes on the menu. I thought you'd like to know." Amara smiled. It wasn't redemption, not entirely, but it was change. And sometimes, change was enough to keep hope alive. Months later, Amara stood in the old Civic Hall downtown, speaking to a crowd of high school students. She told them about the night at La Fontaine, about the video, about the storm that followed. She told them about her grandmother and the photo in the diner. "Racism doesn't always announce itself," she said, her voice steady. "Sometimes it's a sneer at the door. Sometimes it's who doesn't get hired, who doesn't get served. But here's the thing, you don't have to fight it with rage alone. You can fight it with persistence, with truth, with the quiet, unshakable belief that you belong." The room was silent, the way it gets when words land exactly where they're meant to. When she stepped off the stage, a girl no older than 16 approached her, clutching a notebook. "My mom works in a hotel," the girl said. "She's been treated badly there. Could you help her?" Amara placed a hand gently on the girl's shoulder. "Yes, that's why I'm here." Outside, the evening was golden, the city buzzing softly around her. She walked past a cafe, the smell of fresh bread drifting out into the street. Somewhere behind her, a busker played a slow, thoughtful tune on a saxophone. Amara pulled the old photograph from her bag, glancing at her grandmother's face one more time. "I'm still at it, Grandma," she murmured. "And I'm not stopping." Then she slipped it back into her bag, lifted her chin, and kept walking toward whatever door someone would try to close next. And this time, she wouldn't be alone. That's the personal legacy, the broader social change, and the quiet but powerful note that the fight continues. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.